As Raptors fans, we may have seen the last of Kyle Lowry in a Raptors jersey, but I am still going to go out of my way to defend this guy, and I'm here to tell you today why he is the most disrespected player of his generation. Let's get into it. Welcome Raptors fans and possibly other NBA fans to Amateur Hour Sports. This is a channel where you get NBA content with a focus on the Raptors every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. We're re-implementing the content schedule on the channel. So if you like what you see from today's video and you want consistent uploads about basketball, hit that subscribe button down below to show your support to the channel. We're on our road to 3,000 subscribers. Help us get there a little bit quicker. Also, follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Amateur Sports. We're watching along a ton of playoff basketball together. Always a great time with a great group of people. But today we are focusing on Kyle Lowry, and for the special occasion talking about Kyle Lowry, decided to throw up the Kyle Lowry jersey today because I am feeling a little bit upset about the blatant disrespect Kyle Lowry has been getting. You know what? Throughout his entire Toronto Raptors career, quite frankly, his entire Toronto Raptors career, he hasn't gotten the goddamn respect that he deserves. And it's starting to really get on my nerves after seeing the incredible outpouring support for Chris Paul's season that he's having. Because, you know, I feel like Kyle Lowry's season last season was very reminiscent of the current Chris Paul season, and Kyle Lowry didn't get really any sort of credit for that. Chris Paul is getting all of the credit for what the Suns are doing this season. So, let's dive a little bit into the stats. So for starters, Chris Paul this season, I'm not denying that he has been outstanding. He's been great for the Phoenix Suns, and he is one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, they are where they are currently in the NBA standings. They go into the playoffs as the second seed, either awaiting a date with the Golden State Warriors or the Los Angeles Lakers. We will find that out tonight. But a phenomenal job Chris Paul's done with this team. The coaching staff has done a great job. Monty Williams, I would say he is likely going to win Coach of the Year, if not be a finalist for that award. Devin Booker has been great. DeAndre Ayton has been great. Mikal Bridges has taken a huge step up in his career. There's a lot of reasons why the Suns are where they are, but Chris Paul, I would say, is the key figure in the success the Phoenix Suns are having. Now, I'm not denying that, but analysts, credited NBA analysts, are pouring out the support for Chris Paul to be named NBA's most valuable player. Now, again, I'm not saying Chris Paul's not having a good season, but to claim Chris Paul is the MVP with a stat line, it's a great stat line, but it's not an MVP stat line. 16 points per game, 16.4 points per game, 8.9 assists per game, 4.5 rebounds per game. Decent shooting splits. True shooting percentage adds up to 59.9% for Chris Paul, and they have a 708 win percentage. These are great numbers. They're not the numbers of Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Giannis, Steph Curry. But let's compare Chris Paul's MVP season to Kyle Lowry's previous season with the Toronto Raptors, where Kyle Lowry was really making a case for an All-NBA team, but in the end got no credit. Now you're really seeing some eerily similar things about this. Kyle Lowry, he's got more points, 3 more points per game. I know Chris Paul's got the assists. Chris Paul's got the 8.9 assists per game. Kyle Lowry's got the more points. Rebounds, relatively the same. Win percentage for each of the teams is in favor of the Toronto Raptors, and the true shooting percentage is also very similar. Chris Paul 59.9, Kyle Lowry at 59%. So judging by these stats, if Chris Paul is in the MVP discussion this season, Kyle Lowry would have been in the MVP discussion last season because, the Raptors, sure, they were coming off a championship. Now, here's the difference. Here's the difference, I think. Chris Paul joined a Suns team who hadn't made the playoffs in some years. He joins, all of a sudden, there's a 2 seed. Now, I will make this case for the Raptors here because they came off of a championship, right? So they were expected to be good again, right? Wrong. Most NBA analysts, especially American NBA analysts, who are the ones voting for the awards, quite frankly, had the Raptors either not making the playoffs or barely scraping into the playoffs. Now, the Raptors winded up with the second best record in the entire NBA, much like the Phoenix Suns have this season with Chris Paul at the helm, Chris Paul kind of orchestrating the offense on the team. Now, is Chris Paul the best and most talented player on the team? You'd probably make the case that Devin Booker is like the best player on the team, but Chris Paul influences the game a lot more. Now, the Raptors in the previous season, Kyle Lowry, was he the best player? No, Pascal Siakam was the best player on the team. All-NBA second team, was an all-star. Kyle Lowry, much like that, was an all-star. Didn't make any All-NBA teams, despite having, similar to MVP level Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul is undoubtedly going to make an all NBA team at the end of the season. And, Kyle Lowry, why wasn't he involved in at least an all NBA third team last season with a great stat line that others would consider when Chris Paul does it? When Chris Paul does it, Chris Paul gets into an MVP conversation, and Kyle Lowry does not get into any discussion whatsoever. So this is really bothering me. I'm not saying that Kyle Lowry should have been in the MVP discussion last year, but if you're going to put Chris Paul in the MVP discussion this season, and I know that stats don't tell everything with Chris Paul, but the same applies to Kyle Lowry. Stats aren't everything when it comes to Chris Paul's game. Kyle Lowry, there is so much more to his game than just the numbers. It works both ways for them. Is Kyle Lowry as good as Chris Paul? No, I don't think he is. But the stats do show a lot of parallels and a lot of similarities. And when you did watch a lot of the Phoenix Suns game season, and you watch as much Raptors as I do, you see the influence that Kyle Lowry has. And he is right there at the top of the league in terms of his influence on winning. And he has been credited by other NBA coaches who have to face him in the playoffs. You could talk about the Celtics coach Brad Stevens. You talk about the Miami coach Eric Spoelstra. These guys don't enjoy coaching against Kyle Lowry because they understand how talented he is, how good he is, and how good at winning he is. And that was point proven with his NBA championship. So, regular season-wise, Kyle Lowry completely, utterly disrespected, not being put in any sort of all-NBA conversation when Chris Paul, who has similar stats, is in an MVP conversation. It doesn't make any sense other than the fact that people don't care about the Raptors, people don't care about Kyle Lowry. Now let's switch gears to another layer of disrespect for Kyle Lowry, and that comes to playoff performances. And a lot of people seem to think that Kyle Lowry is notoriously known for choking in the playoffs, not being a good playoff performer, but I have the numbers to absolutely put that to bed because Kyle Lowry is one of the most clutch playoff performers, and you know what? The stats would show you he is the most clutch playoff performer. I mean, let's get started with the elimination games. Kyle Lowry in elimination games puts up good numbers. He averages 43% from the field, about 35% from three, almost 22 points per game. These are good numbers. And, you could take away the fact that in one of those situations, he only put up 5 points in one of the elimination games. That was the 4-game sweep from the Cleveland Cavaliers in the conference semifinals. But, there's some big numbers there. There's a 33-point game in there. There's a lot of good performances for Kyle Lowry in there. Decent shooting, lots of points, putting up some assists, putting up some rebounds. So Kyle Lowry, when it comes to elimination games, he shows up for the Raptors and definitely benefits them in winning some games. Now let's talk about clutch stats as a whole, because people always talk about clutch. It doesn't matter what you can do over the course of a playoff game. It's about what you do in those clutch situations. So let's take a look at some of the best clutch playoff performers, or so you would think, in the playoffs. So let's take a look at the statistics here. So for the sake of this data, the clutch situations I use is when there was 2 minutes or less left in the game, because that's when it's truly clutch time. And the game was separated by 5 points or less in these situations. So, you've got your big hitters here. You've got KD just under 40%. Russell Westbrook is up there, 38.7%. You've got your LeBron, 36, Curry, 35, and you've also got like Kawhi Leonard, who's kind of near the bottom, 30% shooting from the field. Now, these somewhat impressive numbers, right? But clutch stats, you typically in the clutch, you've got better defenders on you, you've got specific sets on defense that are dedicated to stopping you, so maybe your shooting percentages won't quite be the same. So now let's look at this graphic while we add in Kyle Lowry. So same stats, same parameters, now with Kyle Lowry, and look at that. Kyle Lowry is well and truly at the top of clutch playoff performers. 61.5% shooting from the field when it's 2 minutes or less in a playoff game and the score is separated by 5 points or less between the teams. So, Kyle Lowry, when the going gets tough, when you need a basket, you can rely on him to get those baskets. Well, now some people might argue he doesn't shoot as much as some of these other guys. Doesn't shoot as much as like a LeBron James or a Steph Curry. Well, Kyle Lowry sets up other people for success in those clutch situations as well. It's not just about the baskets. He's got the baskets. He's clearly got the shooting percentages in these clutch situations, but, he doesn't have to force things. What makes Kyle Lowry so good in these clutch situations is that he's willing to look for the mismatches, the best matchup for his teammate, the best look for his teammate, a guy cutting. He reads the game, and if the best decision is to shoot, then by all means, Kyle Lowry can take that shot on. And this graphic here, the graphic I showed, is the 7 seasons that the Raptors made the playoffs in a row. So, big sample size, not a small sample size. It's a huge, huge sample size for all of these guys to get their numbers. And Kyle Lowry, in that large sample size, 7 seasons straight in the playoffs, has proven he can get it done in clutch situations. So the narrative that Kyle Lowry is a choker in the playoffs, is not a good playoff performer, needs to be put to bed. And he needs his goddamn respect, because how Kyle Lowry only has one All-NBA appearance is absolutely criminal. And I want to tell you something. Kyle Lowry is on track to get in the Hall of Fame right now, with the career not even over. Basketball Reference has his Hall of Fame probability at 85%. Now, that's just a website. That's not definitive, but that's got to be pretty close to, if not already, a lock for Hall of Fame. So maybe he doesn't get his respect from basketball fans right now, but goddamn is he going to get his respect once he's sitting in the Hall of Fame. So did a lot of research for this, did a lot of work for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed what I brought out. Let me know what you think about all these statistics in the comments down below. And I know we're going to have some people really hating on our man Kyle Lowry, but that wraps it for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, be sure to like the video. If you did like, helps with the algorithm, helps us reach some new viewers, and subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports for more content just like this. Again, mostly a focus on the Raptors, but we dive into other NBA content. If you want to get more involved on the NBA content, we're watching along a ton of playoff games on the twitch.tv/amateursports. Make sure you're there for tomorrow's stream as we watch along the Pacers playing against the Washington Wizards. At the end of the day, I believe what I say. If you disagree, that is okay. We'll see you again next time for another video.